Good morning, church. I hope you're doing well this morning. I hope you had a great weekend, and I hope you were able to join us yesterday for our service in person. I'm so thankful that I got to see many of your smiling faces and got to worship with you and just fellowship with you from a distance. And this week we are continuing through the year of the Word. It is week 33, and this week we are still continuing through the Gospels. And so today we are in the book of Luke. We are in Luke chapter 13, verses 22 through 35. So Luke 13, 22 through 35. And we're still focusing on the life of Jesus. We're still seeing some of his ministry. We're seeing his works, his miracles. We're seeing him speak to others in this ultimate heavenly wisdom that he has. Sometimes they can't even understand it, the way that he speaks so highly and so perfect. And here we find an example of Jesus giving an analogy about eternity. This section is known as the narrow door. If you look in our reading guide today, it is titled Following Rules, and that's kind of what Jesus is talking about. He's talking about this idea of legalism or law-keeping or rule-keeping versus true salvation. And so starting in verse 22, it said he went on his way through the towns and the villages, and he was teaching people, and he was heading towards Jerusalem. And someone said to him, "Lord, will those who are saved be few?" And he said, "Strive to enter through the narrow gate, for many, I tell you, will seek to enter and not be able. When once the master of the house has risen and shut the door, and you begin to stand outside and to knock at the door, saying, 'Lord, open to us,' then he will answer you, 'I do not know where you come from.' Then you will begin to say, 'We ate and drank in your presence, and we taught in your streets, and you taught in our streets.' But he will say, 'I tell you, I do not know where you come from. Depart from me, all you workers of evil.'" And then it goes on to explain hell, that when you're separated from God, when you don't enter through the narrow gate, there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, and you'll be filled with sorrow as you see Abraham and Isaac and Jacob on the other side, and you are shut out and cannot enter into there. And this is really interesting that Jesus is talking about this, because I think when we look around ourselves, we find many of people who think that they are going to enter into heaven. They think they're going to be saved, that they're going to be going accepted into eternity. And the reality is that they don't know Jesus, that they are wrong. And they base their salvation or the thought of their salvation off of either going to church or maybe once being baptized or even being near God, being around godly people, being around Christians, or even claiming to be a Christian or claiming to be a good person. Here these people said, "We ate and drank in your presence." They thought because they were literally in the presence of Jesus, because they were around Jesus, that salvation would be granted to them. It says, "And you taught in our streets." They thought that because he was merely near them, because they knew him as an acquaintance, that they would be able to get into heaven. And the reality is that the narrow gate, in order to enter the narrow gate, the only way we can do that is by faith in Jesus. And we see Jesus in here portraying this idea that one day the time for his grace to cover you is going to end, and then the period of judgment will begin. And after this time, the door will be closed. There will be no one who slips in after this happens. And so from this passage, a couple things we learn. Salvation is only through faith in Jesus. It is only by placing our faith in him, believing in him, having him forgive us from our sin because of his sacrifice on the cross. Also, we learn from this passage that once that time comes, that once Jesus declares that it is over, once it is finished, no one else will enter into heaven. And so that shows us the urgency that we need to have as we reach out to other people in this world. Because we don't know when that time is. It could be tomorrow, it could be the next day, it could be next week, but we don't know when the cutoff will be. And so may we get busy, get on our feet, go tell people about the only way they can get into heaven, and that is by salvation through faith in Jesus. And so today I hope you're able to read Luke 13:22 through 35 as we read the analogy that Jesus gives about the narrow gate. And I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you again tomorrow morning.